Welcome, everybody, to the Social Dig, the greatest underrated show on the World Wide Web. I'm your host, Mr. Rob G. And as always, we're going to be digging into some topics to keep you talking and the talk to keep you thinking. So come on in, kick your feet up, get an ice cold beverage, get ready to join the conversation. Definitely glad to be back here at the Social Dig, getting another episode in, as we're just going to talk about why we need disclosure now. This is more of an emotional show than more of something that I've put together. So we're going to kind of, just go off the cuff a little bit and kind of really discuss why I feel like we need disclosure now. A lot of things going on in the world, a lot of shifts and changes and, things to be concerned about, especially when you push for humanity, when that's your mission. So with that being said, we're going to have a great conversation today as we go ahead and get into it. I definitely want to go ahead and bring up our promotional here, as we always do, right here at the Social Dig. Ask the chat. You can ask the chat at any time. Don't forget, you can call the viewer message call-in line 856-843-3444, or that's 856-THE-DIGG. If you're outside the United States, at 001, then dial the number 856-843-3444, or once again, that's 856-THE-DIGG. We're going to have a fantastic show tonight as we go ahead and get ready to get into it here. And let's go ahead and take a look. Yep, memberships are still available. Become a social soldier today. We got a long list of social soldiers here. Definitely want to make sure we give a shout out to every last one of them. Maggie M10, the Beekeeper, D. Nunley, T-Bone, and Joanne, Mothman, Richard Wilson, Lovey Love, Dogface, Blue Riders, DG, Poncho Zorg, Deb from Sacramento, Flat Six, Lulu Bell, President Zaddy, Eternity, Eternal Thirsty, Bryson's Folly, Magnetic is Attractive, Urso, Saprosoft, Kurt M, Hips and Ships, welcome to the show, Little Camp 51, Lisa Davis, Kitty Catty Whack, Joe Monk, Phil R, Chris Jarvis, Robert Redman, Clip Channel, Midwest Night Watchers, Guardian Jackpot, Brown Dwarf, Drew Banky, Miss Catherine Jones, Dead Fish Cheese Spread, Moody Mongol, I still have to fix that, and then W. Decker, West Decker. You guys all show your love for the Social Dig. Everybody who shows up here actually is, someone that I consider showing love and supporting the show. So I appreciate every last one of you guys out there. Also, remember, you can go online. We do have swag at the Social Shop right here. My Experience with Phenomena. We have also the Social Dig t-shirts, along with a lot of other swag. Definitely go ahead and take a look at that stuff over there. And we're going to be getting right on into the show. I want to welcome everyone who has showed up and who will be watching this on the back end. Kitty Catty Whack and Juliana McGee, I do see you. Thank you for coming on in. We do appreciate you as we get ready to jump right into the show. It's like I said before, this is definitely a time in our recent history where I just have the overwhelming feeling. We know we need disclosure. We know we want disclosure. We know that's what we're after. But recently I just had the overwhelming feeling that we were walking backwards almost, it felt like. Everything we do here is pro-humanity and things to move the needle in a direction that hopefully puts humanity on a more positive or better course going forward. But yeah, some things have happened recently that kind of took the wind out my sails, I'll say, and really made me feel like this was a show that we needed to do. So this show isn't going to be too long, but it is going to be full of, full of perspectives and, really trying to figure out how we can right the ship, right? Because I just feel like we've taken some steps back, even though we've had some pretty recent things happen within ufology, which we'll be talking about here in the news here in just a moment. But we have, there's definitely been some bright sides, but for emotions sake and just the way that something like this makes you feel, you kind of have to address it, right? And what better place to do it than right here on the social dig? So that's what we're gonna do. That's exactly what we're gonna do. Drew Banky, I do see you out there, man. Thank you for coming on in, brother. Do appreciate you. So let's go ahead and kind of get into this. I'm just gonna jump right on into the news here. We have our disclosure news. Let's see what we got. This week in disclosure news, and we had a couple things happen back to back. It was actually for me kind of surprising because I knew the UFO hearing was coming up. We knew that. We talked about that on the previous episode, but I was unaware totally until the last moment that the Arrow Senate hearing was also happening. So, depending on how you look at it, it's kind of awesome maybe that it happened back to back like that, that they're, making sure that they put these issues on the calendar. I think is probably a good way to look at this and walk away from it and say, hey, at least it's the conversation is being had, because I can appreciate that. But as we've talked about, I've been on Spaced Out Radio with Dave, and we kind of have talked about the UFO hearing, but we haven't done that here at Social Dig. So, kind of want to go ahead and go into that. Also, the Arrow Senate hearing, kind of give you a synopsis on what happened there, and then we can discuss our thoughts. And then we'll move into the more meat and potatoes of the show, which is the why I feel like, and maybe you as well, it depends. You're definitely welcome to put any comments or anything, any opinions you have regarding tonight's topic in the chat, whether you're here live or even if you're here on a replay. You can still put it in the comment section how you feel about your reason for why we need disclosure. There's so many. I mean, we're doing everything we can as human beings, the bigger part of us, not the people who are aware of the ability to be enlightened and kind of ascending from the lower vibration that we're in right now. But yeah, so let's go ahead and get into it. So the UFO hearing was the first thing that was up, and we broadcast that right live on Spaced Out Radio. Sat and kind of watched it with you guys, and it was uneventful. Now I'll start this off by saying that I made this point before. We have too many people within this field that are pumping up these events as this is the one, this is the final one, this is the one to break it all open. And I'm tired of hearing that narrative. I'm tired of hearing that. And there's a few ways that you could look at that. You could look at that as, and we'll name names obviously, because the person who was mainly promoting this UFO hearing, from what I could see, was Jeremy Corbell. And apparently, because he submitted the papers during the hearing, maybe been one of the reasons why he made that comment. Now that I'm looking back on it, but just kind of the lead up to it, he promised everyone everywhere that this UFO hearing would be one to remember, and that this one would be the one that changed everything. Everything changes on this hearing date. At the time that all this promoting was going on for the hearing, we had no clue who was going to be testifying. They would not release the names. So everything lined up. I mean, and from just, looking back on it and not having the insight into what actually happened, it was being built up to be this huge, momentous moment where maybe we get the information that we've been looking for. Like this is how it was promoted. The fact that they kept the witnesses private, which I can understand just by itself being something that probably should happen every time, because we know of the harassment that the government ends up doing once, and the skeptics as well, how they love to immediately dig into a person and try to uncover things about individuals. So I can understand that. But when you couple that with the promotion of this is going to be the biggest hearing, nothing's going to be the same. The world will know UFOs and aliens are real. That's kind of, I kind of got drawn into that, which is my fault, right? Because we know historically, we know how these things turn out as they always have. But I let myself kind of get into the moment, and I'm like, okay, well, this is a week right after the election. Wow, that's peculiar because this is an issue they could have put off until the next year. They could have easily done that. So there must be something to this then. There must be something to what Corbell is saying. Maybe he knows something that we don't know. And then on top of that, they were hiding the names. So you have a week after the election, they're hiding the names. You have a guy, Corbell, who is acting like he has insight on what's going to happen or be said or released at this hearing. And then so it's this big, huge buildup. And then once the hearing date comes, we see who the witnesses are. We found out like a day or two earlier, but it was lackluster. It was Lou Elizondo. It was Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet. It was Mike Gold from NASA, and it was Schellenberger as well was there. And it wasn't really a good group of people to me. I looked at that group and I'm like, okay, what type of information could these guys be here to give? What type of groundbreaking information that we haven't already heard are these guys going to deliver? The wild card for me was Mike Gold, only because I had no clue on why he was even there. So I'm like, okay, he must be here to say something that we're not expecting. That's the out of the players that showed up, he was the wild card, the one that I was like, why is he here? What is he going to say? Is he going to, 180 on the whole NASA speech that was given about a year and a half ago at the Aero NASA hearing? And he didn't. He didn't come through at all. My second wild card there was Tim Gallaudet, and it was really because he said some really deep things over the last couple of years. He said he's gone as far as to say that we've been in contact with extraterrestrial, the extraterrestrial presence. He literally said that. I think it was at the end of 2022, obviously paraphrasing, but at the end of 2022, I think it was in December, he came out and made a statement like that out of nowhere because he hadn't been on TV or anything before this. So, and then he's also made other comments as time has gone on. So, okay, he was my other wild card. I'm like, okay, maybe he has something that he hasn't divulged because we've heard a few things from him, but not a whole lot. So he came out, he was lackluster in the data that he was given. He didn't even come with the statements that he made to the public initially. So I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? If you're here under oath and you're not coming with the same data that you came with when you did a news report or when you initially came to the scene, then it just kind of makes me wonder what what's real and what isn't, right? What's the truth and what's not, because we're here for the truth regardless on if these guys are ufologists and they call themselves ufologists. We're here for the truth. And you kind of have to look at a person's character, what they've said in the past. I always say history is a good indicator of things for the present. So you got to look at the past, and you have to look at the things that have been said, the claims that have been made, and then what happens when you sit here and you get in front of the Congress. Because David Grush, he came out with the interview, and then everything he said in the interview, he repeated right there in Congress, right? Verbatim, every word. And the you could feel the genuine intent there, the intent to really want to get a message out there. And so I was just troubled by how this hearing went. If you look at history as a judge, and you look at the last hearing that we had, which was with David Grush, and there was a certain standard that was set during that hearing, this one just did not live up to it at all. And so, just going a little further into it, I know you probably heard some of this rant before, but it's really on my mind, and it really goes into the bigger conversation that we'll have here in a moment. Michael Schellenberger, okay, as a journalist, and you heard me talk about this with Dave, I can appreciate journalistic integrity, and uh, I can appreciate having sources and needing to protect those sources. I'm all for that. I'm all for that. But when we're in a moment like the moment we're in, a moment so big for humanity, where disclosure can tip the scales, where disclosure can really move the needle, or one of these statements that someone comes out and makes can really move us to that next stage where we're all waiting to go. I just have to ask, and that's why I probe Dave about this, because it's definitely something that's been on my mind. It's like, when do you come to a point where the information that you are needing to deliver is bigger than the source? Or is there ever a point that happens? Because if it's always going to be about journalistic integrity, then I don't think you should be including journalists on these witness panels, right? Because at least the other guys can say, hey, I can't say it here, but I can say it in a skiff, right? So we have hope, or we're optimistic that when they go into those skiffs, the information that the congressperson is asking for is being delivered in that skiff, right? So you would hope that that's the case. But like I said, you've heard my statement on it, but it's the first time we've done it here on the Social Dig when we talked about this. So yeah, these are my grades. Lou Elizondo. Before I go to grades, Lou Elizondo, just, I don't know if it was nerves. I don't know what it was, but Lou Elizondo has had so much practice. He's been under the spotlight so much on big stages, small stages, medium-sized stages, everything in between. He's been on those stages many, many times. He's done hundreds, if not maybe 1,000 interviews talking about the subject, and talking about and giving secondhand information on some instances, right? Claiming to be the director of ATIP. Okay, so if we take all that at face value, then how does a guy like that go ahead and present the fake image that he did about a week or so before this hearing? How does that happen, right? How do you not have a system set up where you have vetted your data to a point to where you don't make a mistake like that, right? Or at least you have someone within your circle who looks at that photo and says, hey, you know what? Maybe we should have someone analyze that, because there's something that doesn't sit right with me about what it is that they're depicting in this photo. I mean, none of that, right? You would think. But I'm thinking, I'm going to give Lou the benefit of the doubt, as far as I don't think that he is I think that he's smart enough. This is what I'll say. I think he's definitely smart enough to be able to know that maybe there's something more to that photo that should be analyzed. Being the director of ATIP, just all those different things that I just said, those things alone should have him in a space where he's able to vet that. So it puzzled me, and I said, okay, we know the hearing's coming up. So, and then we found out he was going to testify there, and it was like, okay, well, let's see then, if this hearing ties into why a mistake like this could be made. And not saying that I couldn't really draw any lines to it, because I've even thought about it since the hearing, trying to see, okay, how do those two things come together? But the only thing I can say is that you made a mistake. There shouldn't have been a mistake that some people will look at as maybe being deliberate, and then you go to a hearing where it's very important for you to convey information, um, and you totally you for the most part you flop. He definitely seemed nervous, and I can understand that. But if you've been on so many other platforms, I just don't see where the nerves kick in, right? Because even, I sit here and talk on a camera. I've talked in front of groups of people, and you're nervous initially, but when you get going, you get going. So just kind of boggle my mind how he could have two incidents so close together that, either indicate that he doesn't want to say everything, or that maybe somebody said something to him behind the scenes, or I don't know, just can't figure it out. But with that being said, they did have a couple bright spots there, as I've said before, is that the questions that were being asked by the Congress were excellent, and it was just showed me that, the hearings that have happened previous have kind of tuned them into being able to brainstorm and think of the right questions, unless they were given those questions by someone. If so, I don't know who that would be, but it's possible. However, to the on the face of it, it looked like that they were just better prepared to engage and talk about the phenomena, and they were using terms and terminology that let you know that they had been looking into this prior to the hearing. So, kind of a wrap up. The UFO hearing held on November 13th, 2024, continued efforts to uncover governmental activities related to unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAPs. Witnesses testified about secretive programs and the suppression of information, alleging that the U.S. government has withheld details about UAP encounters and technologies. Key highlights included the government programs. Witnesses claimed the existence of classified UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering efforts. Luis Elizondo, former head of Pentagon's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, confirmed the reality of UAPs and stated that both the U.S. and other nations possess advanced non human technologies. And suppression allegations were brought up as well. Testimony described a culture of intimidation and retaliation against those attempting to disclose information about UAPs. Investigative journalist Michael Schellenberger and other experts emphasized the need for greater transparency and legislative action. And the global implications, some witnesses highlighted the potential dangers of a global arms race over advanced technologies derived from UAPs. Others stressed the importance of reducing stigma to foster open scientific investigation. The hearing underscored bipartisan interest in UAP transparency, with lawmakers pressing for accountability and public access to information. The Pentagon stance remains cautious as it asserts no confirmed evidence of extraterrestrial origins, but public congressional pressure continues to grow, which is a great summation of kind of where we're at with it. So you have the people keeping the secrets, you have the people who appear to be wanting to uncover those secrets on behalf of humanity. You kind of have a little bit of both of that going on, it seems. That was the good part about it, right? It really wasn't who showed up to the event. That had no effect to me on, or bearing on, if this was successful or not, or if it moved anything or not. Just the facts that we just went over there, the things that were pointed out, I think were key points, to keep driving home, even if they've been heard before, even if that same, the spiel of intimidation and retaliation has been said by David Grush. We still need to keep that narrative out there, and at least have Congress understand that these intimidation tactics are happening to multiple individuals, and not just to David Grush or just a Lou Elizondo. They're happening to anyone who dares to attempt to unravel or expose the subject, right? So I think that's just important to keep bringing up the fact that that's happening, and also the global arms race, which we know, when they talk about adversarial tech, it's more to them. And when I say them, I mean the government. To them, it's more of a worry of if they have reverse engineered it or not. Did they figure it out? Because they know they have retrieved material, because we have retrieved material. We know other nations have that as well. So the the concern from these governments are more so of, did they figure it out yet? Uh-oh. If they did, they know that that's game over, right? As far when we're talking about war. But I think we're looking at it the wrong way, or the government is coming at it the wrong way, obviously, worrying about who's reverse engineering it. Let's just admit that we have it first off, and then that kind of it's like it's the same thing as when you talk about someone, or someone talks about their insecurities before you can point them out, right? I think that's kind of the mood or feeling that we would have if everybody, all the powers, just admitted, hey, yeah, we've retrieved these crazy things. It doesn't say anything to what you've developed on your own. That conversation is a totally separate conversation. But at least we can sit at the table and say, hey, this is what we have, this is what we know, these things are out there, and kind of go from there. Which this all kind of goes into what we'll be talking about in just a moment here, as I get ready to jump into here. Oh, look at my guy, man. C-Tech Mateo, my guy. Thanks for coming on in, buddy. Got to talk to you. Got to talk to you, sir. Monica is here. Thank you for coming in, Monica. Earth Goat Trees. Thanks for coming on in. And let's see. Thomas Rock, I do appreciate you showing on up. Tim James, UFO. Tim James, ULP, asleep at the wheel. Yes, that's exactly what we have going on. Scott's Life, appreciate you coming on in. And Maggie M10, thank you for coming on in today. Appreciate you showing up. For anyone I may have missed, let me go back a little bit here. Seeing Drew Banky. Okay, yep, everybody's here. So, yeah, that's kind of where that's at. And that's my feeling on it, right? Yeah, 4 characters that could have done more, but didn't for whatever reason. And kind of that's just where this UFO hearing kind of fizzled out. And at least we know that they'll continue trying to gather support to put on the next hearing. That's what we're hopeful of, and that's what we should be seeing. So moving on, let's get into the next story here, which is the flip right off of this, right? So less than a week later, we had the Aero Senate hearing, which I found out at the last moment. I truthfully, I found out, I think, the night before, and I'm like, okay, we got to put this on live. So I went ahead and did it, and I didn't really have any expectations, really, truthfully, because I didn't have a lot of time to think about it. But I did watch it, obviously, as we broadcasted live. And, I had heard back when Kirkpatrick stepped aside, there were mumblings out there of individuals who said that this new director was going to be different than Kirkpatrick, that he may have a different perspective on the data and things that they're collecting. Like, this may be a little bit different. And, I sat there and I listened to it, and I listened to the gentleman talk, and I really didn't get much of anything. Let me kind of just give you the synopsis on this before I actually go in on it. The Aero Senate hearing on November 19, 2024, brought updates from the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or ARROW, before the U.S. Senate Armed Services Subcommittee. The office revealed findings from its recent investigations into unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAP. While no conclusive evidence of extraterrestrial activity or technology was presented, Arrow's director emphasized the importance of transparency and ongoing scientific analysis. Of the 757 UAP cases reported during the specific period, 118 were resolved, but many remain unexplained, highlighting the complexity of the phenomena. Additionally, witnesses and lawmakers underscored the need for increased openness in government programs related to UAPs. There was also growing attention on allegations of secretive UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering programs. Although these claims could not be fully discussed in public due to classification issues, advocates continue to call for reducing stigma around UAP research and ensuring accountability for funding for unbiased investigations. So they had the hearing to kind of guess follow up on some of the claims made in the previous UFO hearings. And what we got from Arrow was exactly the same script that we got from Sean Kirkpatrick. So this is where you start to use your logic. This is where you start to sit back and use logic and say, okay, let's think about this. What makes sense? And when you think about it, it's like, okay, two totally different individuals with Sean Kirkpatrick and John Lukowski, I believe is what his name was. These two individuals are two different people. So you have to ask yourself, looking with the questions that were being asked and the answers that were being given, what is the likelihood that you have two individuals with the exact same thought process? So that's kind of where I start. I start with that because two different individuals, how would you both sound exactly the same in a congressional setting, in a hearing setting? How would you sound exactly the same? No character, no differences in anything, any of the responses or anything that were given. Now, I will say the one thing that I did see that I appreciated was that he did at least, which is more than Kirkpatrick did, he did at least mention an incident that was unexplained, some really way out incident where there was some sort of object that was, I think he said, 3 times size of a football field, somewhere along those lines, and said that that was something that they hadn't figured out. Okay, well, now you're talking because you won't be able to close that case, the case you're talking about, by saying birds, drones, or so at least you've acknowledged a case that likely won't get resolved under something prosaic or something human made. And I think that's a good, thing to remember out of, or a nugget to take out of the Arrow hearing, is that they admitted that. And it's not, and I always say, I said this about previous UAP reports, especially the one right before the Chinese spy balloon thing, that it's not really about what they say because they're not allowed to say things. It's more like what they didn't say, and then kind of looking at, some of the nuggets and kind of draw lines for conclusions for yourself. Because unfortunately, outside of that comment, everything else that he said lined right up with, sounded like Sean Kirkpatrick. Same song, different person singing it, right? This is exactly how that came across. I didn't know that it was only going to be 40 minutes long. It wasn't that long at all. They just asked some general questions. He said the same thing, and we want to make sure that we figure out what these things are. We want to close these cases. A lot of these cases are going to be things that we can explain, but still just being able to, speak to the fact that there are a portion of these things that cannot be explained, that have not been explained. And I think that's kind of the win as far as that goes. So when you look at it, okay, right? All right. It wasn't the best, but there are silver linings that we're able to kind of take out of that and kind of at least walk away with something that we can use or apply to the next set of hearings if they happen and when they happen. And my advice is I don't sit around waiting on these things to happen. I don't sit around and wait for these hearings and put all my hope into, oh, maybe this is the time. Like I said in the beginning of this news segment, Jeremy Corbell kind of did pump me up a little bit because he was really making it seem like it was going to be something bigger than it was. But that just kind of ruins his credibility at this point, right? Because next time, if the next hearing he does the same thing, obviously I'm not going to look at it the same. And I think that effect had an effect on other people out there too, because I talked to other people who felt the same way, like, wow, yeah, it sounds like this is going to be something special here. And then it turned out to be nothing. So, if that's the way you want to go with it, if you want to, pump up nothing burgers, I don't know what the reason would be for that. I don't know how that benefits anything, because when you're talking, unless your goal was to talk to the people who had never watched the hearing and you're trying to really get them to tune in, and that'd be the only angle that I could see that would make sense on to why this all went the way that it went. But with that being said, that's my little rant on the two things here, that the hearing and the Arrow hearing as well. Like I said, I would say don't pay attention or don't put too much hope into what goes into it, but still let them have them. So I'm open to them continuing hearings as long as they want to do it, right? Because, why not do it? Why not? Maybe you get that one person, the one person I keep saying, which is that whistleblower that just wants to put it all on the line. Maybe you get that person that says, okay, I'm coming forward now and I'm going to be next. And then that person sits right there in front of Congress and the world as it's being broadcast live and says things they probably shouldn't say according to their NDA. So that's why we need to let the hearings continue to happen and kind of have a safe space for whistleblowers, so that maybe that incident takes place at some point and then we kind of really bust the doors open. But outside of that, it's all on us to talk about disclosure. And that's why we're doing this show today, because it's all about why the world needs disclosure now. It just feels like it's more important than ever for it to happen. So we'll go ahead and jump out of the news and we'll kind of get into some just general conversation. Like I said, this is more feeling, more this show was created more on feeling. And so we'll go from here. Let's get out of the news though. We'll All right, we're going to jump right into the next segment here. That was the disclosure news. So now we're going to actually get into why we need disclosure now. And I'll start this off, because I don't want to get political. I don't even want to make this seem like it's political, but we did obviously have an election here in the United States recently. And I've told people, actually, I have a buddy out there who he knows exactly who they are. And that person told me 2 weeks before the election that they had a vision that Trump was going to win this election, and that not only that, but also had a vision that this would be the last election. That person knows exactly who they are. I don't want to put them on Front Street, but when I heard that, I was looking around for the logic and how could that make sense? Like I don't see where that could happen. And I thought about it, and as election day came up, Trump won. Congratulations to Donald Trump. for me in the next president, right? So we're fine with that. That's where the politics end. Because for me, this wasn't an election. This election for me wasn't about individuals or sides. As you know, here at the Social Dig, it's pro humanity. So everybody matters. I don't care what background you're from. I don't care what you subscribe to. It doesn't matter to me, right? We're here as human beings. You kind of shed all those outer jackets and you come here as a human being to have these conversations to move the needle. That's why we get together and we do this. And so for me, the election was more just like watching a football game. Okay, you have teams. Okay, one team has to win. The team wins. Great. Now you move on. You go do something else. That's exactly the way that I played it. But what I did see, and like I said, I don't want to point on any signs because it doesn't matter about the signs, but I did see something that really troubled me just in the world. In those moments, I saw in the initial moments during that time, I saw some things that really made me as a pro humanity person kind of feel like, oh my gosh, we're trying to move the needle forward as humanity and create this new path and where we need to go. But in this moment, I feel like humanity has taken a couple steps back only because of things that I would consider or call crimes against humanity, right? And those, I don't even have to tell you what those things are. If people understand what right is and what wrong is, you understand right from wrong, you understand things that hurt humanity versus things that help humanity, then you can figure out, exactly, why I felt that way, right? And there was a moment where I sat there and I couldn't believe that humanity was taking a loss in a way that we're already compounding over other losses that we've already taken in places that we're trying to come back from and grow from as human beings. And it just was a moment of darkness. When I looked at humanity, I just felt sorry, for everyone involved. I just felt compassion that would have covered everyone, right? And so I thought about it and I was like, this is why we need disclosure now. For these reasons is why we need disclosure now. We need disclosure now. There's things that have reared their head. They've always been there, but I'll give you some examples here. Well, we'll start off here. I forgot that I changed this up a little bit. So we'll start off with the financial inequalities. We've done a show on this, how capitalism translates into going into the galactic federation or wherever it is that we go once we go off planet, and how if this current monetary system that we have, if this works out there, does this even translate out there? Do they use currency off planet, right? We know that money is traditionally the root of all evil. We've spoken about this before. We know that money corrupts. Money causes disparages in people who have things and people who don't have things, right? And it is a system that we have to refigure out in order to bring humanity together, right? I know some people feel like this, but the people who will likely not agree with this sentiment are the people that have money. Believe it or not, right? The rich stay rich by not investing into the rest of humanity. That's how they stay rich. They stay rich. They're very rich people are usually very stingy people. The superiorly wealthy people are usually penny pinchers. And it's just, when I look at the scale of human beings and who's has the best of the best and who has the worst of the worst, and just figuring out a way how can we bring those two things closer together, right? And we have conversations about how the economic system just isn't going to allow equality across the board. You know what I mean? So how do we figure that out? What do we do? What kind of plan do we put in place in order to change how that goes? Right? Because if something happens and the dollar gets devalued, then money is no different than monopoly money at that point, right? Then what does wealth really get you in a situation like that? So I think that's part of the fight that we have, because you have, when you look at the wealthy, the influential people out there, they're the same as these powers that be, the governments that we have across the globe. It's a power situation where it's like, okay, if they lose wealth, they lose power, they lose control over the things that they want to control. And disclosure doesn't really matter to them because it goes against what it is that they are trying to do or what they want to do. People who enjoy being rich don't ever want to see the dollar get devalued. They don't ever want to see a day where that happens. However, someone on the other end of the spectrum doesn't have anything is kind of hoping for things to change in that area, right? So there's a point where these two things come ahead, and I think the only thing that changes this or gives us the ability to change financial inequalities is disclosure, is us doing what we're doing right now or finding the best way to get to the moment where we can say we're not the biggest things in the universe. There are things that are considered more important than what we're doing here on earth, and kind of put it all into perspective that maybe we shouldn't be under the type of program that we're under right now. Maybe does this really translate off planet? If tomorrow was the day that human beings had the ability to go off planet, could we take what we've created here on earth, this societal structure, and make it work out there? I don't think we could. I think the answer is probably no, right? So the when I look around and I see this and I see, you know, the Elon Musk of the world, which we've done a fantastic show on Elon Musk. You should jump in archive. We did that, I think, the last episode, a couple episodes back. But we had discussion there, and then he's coming into play into the current conversation now, right? Where we talk about a new world order. We talk about, you know, a group of people attempting to kind of control the globe, right? And I think we kind of are seeing the discussion we had that day. We're kind of seeing what those effects could be now that we are in this new place that we're in, right? Now it's kind of scary. You go back and watch the Elon Musk episode that we did, and then think about what we talked about there and apply it to what you know now today. And yeah, you know what I mean? Definitely things that go against, I feel like, the progression of humanity. Just these are all things that I see that are barriers or things to stand in the way for us getting to where we want to get. So another thing that really stuck out to me, in this time of political whatever, is the racism and sexism that was always there, but really kind of stood out a lot more in recent days and recent weeks. And it it was to the point where there were people in I won't say in my circle, because I consider my circle like my intimate, immediate circle, right? Which are like really close friends and family members that you live with on a daily. So not in my circle, but in my perimeter, in my outside of my circle, people who I still would consider to be friendly or associates of kind of showed traits of racism and sexism. People who I don't think would have normally reacted in the ways that they did, but they did. And when you do things like that, when you have moments where racism and sexism is something that's shown to be okay, then you have people that show themselves, that show their true colors in those moments, and you get to kind of see, oh wow, that's how that person thinks about other human beings when it comes to X, Y, and Z. Wow. Right. And for me, this is all conflicting to me because my whole outlook on humanity is we're all one, right? Regardless where we come from, we're all in this thing together and we're all moving together as to where we're going. So to hear something like that and to have someone who maybe was in your friend space, show that they deep inside they really have these feelings about things that go totally against moving humanity forward. It bothers me and it bugs me because the time that I spend doing the things that we do, that we all get together and do, I do those things, you know, knowing that that stuff exists out there, but I do it because the majority of us out here don't feel like that. And usually people who feel like that aren't in your space or in your circle. But then when they get found out, that kind of is surprising to me because I'm like, wow, being the kind person that I am that promotes humanity, I you know I allowed someone like that to be in my space, and it really just kind of affected me for a minute. I had to sit and think about it because I don't like I love people who love people. Period. That's kind of what this channel is on built on. People who love other people, where there's no room for any of these other things that kind of are taking us backwards. And I think the only thing that can break us out of that chain is disclosure. If we're defeating racism, we're defeating sexism and all the isms that go along with that, it's going to be a moment like we have right now, which is disclosure. I feel like, and some people say I'm wrong about this, and I could be because I don't know. I just have, using logic, I just feel like disclosure is going to be the thing that makes everyone at one moment realize that we're not the biggest thing in the world. Like, you know what I mean? And I think with that being said, with humanity being able to come together in a moment, then I think you have to kind of erase those sorts of things. They have to be thrown out the window because then we need each other. Everybody will need each other, right? And this is just another reason why I feel like the world needs disclosure now. It has to happen. It has to happen. It has to happen. Financial inequalities, racism, and sexism. And we already know that there's going to be risks involved. So, knowing the risks involved, right? Some people aren't ready to have this. We've discussed this before. Some people aren't ready to have the moment of enlightenment or disclosure. They're not ready for various reasons. It starts with the power, right? The powers that be, the people who have the craft in the bodies. The reason they don't want to do it is because they lose power, and then you have, you know, along with that, you have to answer to the people why X, Y, and Z, all these different things, uh, as you peel the onion back and you find out that they knew about this, and they also knew about abductions. And then they also silenced certain people who tried to say something. And then they been spending your money. They've been making you go to work and spend your money to create things that they don't even want to tell you about, and just the list goes on and on and on and on. So you have powers that be, and I think even the wealthy, this extremely wealthy, that feel that way, and they feel like you guys are over there, we're over here, right? Sort of situation where it's not a unity thing. And there's definitely going to be, if you think about the Great Depression, 1929, right? People who were not even super rich, they just had some money, lost it all and jumped out of windows, thought that this is just the end. I can't see myself in a world where I'm not on top, or where I'm not having all these things, right? And so they end themselves. A lot that go back and look at the Great Depression. I mean, that's kind of the best way that I can point out how the wealthy and the powerful would feel in a moment of losing all of that, which potentially would happen in the disclosure moment. What would they do? What ends would they go to try to prevent something like that from happening? And I think that's what we're living through right now. So the risks there, are that powers that be could hit a nuclear button, or just turn a democratic democracy into a dictatorship overnight, sort of situation. Because once if you're on the cusp of losing everything, then you'll do a lot of things you normally wouldn't have done in order to kind of keep that. And it's just something that you know we have to break that system up anyway. It just has to. It can't, that the way that that's designed, we can't take that structure out there if that's where we intend on going. So another reason why we need disclosure now. Some of the other risks obviously are to the religious outlets, but we have faith there because at least the Catholics are trying to say, hey, we fully embrace extraterrestrial presence in the religion, and maybe they could be the leaders on that for other religions that might not feel that way, right? That might feel like, nope, there's no aliens, there's only angels and demons, because we know we hear that. So maybe that can be worked out. But it's kind of like, do you let this long play, or do you go for the catastrophic disclosure where it's like, no, let's do this now, we need to talk about this now, sort of situation? And that's kind of how I feel with that. I feel like that's why I'm always team catastrophic disclosure, because I feel like in order to change any of these things that we're talking about, disclosure has to happen, and it has to happen now. Like, there's really no way around that, right? And I know I've been talking for a while, but this, like I said, this is more of an emotion-based show because of the time that we're in and how I see humanity being affected, and it really offends me that that's where we're at. You know what I mean? Based on how I feel about people, and the whole goal of, it's like, why do the show if all we're gonna do is go backwards and do the things that stop us from progressing as human beings? And yeah, yeah. So let me just hop back in this chat here and see if anybody is talking about here. Okay, Mateo, the has will always fear the have not, so we'll continue to work to hold them down. That's my point, man. That is sad because it gets amplified in a time like right now, where a lot of a lot of things that affect us here in America, especially, have shifted into uh let's focus on rich people, and let's do that. It's just a crime against everyone else. If the rich are the 1%, then we're the 99%, and you're just not including us. So, and nothing to do with politics. Just let me put that there. I don't care who won. I don't care what side that you're from. I voted for both Republican and Democrat at some time in my life. You know what I mean? So nothing to do with that. It's just that where is the state of humanity in all of this? And that's kind of where we're at with this. We got Monica saying, yes, disclosure. What we know will bring unity to the human race. And we have to do it. It's like our job. It's really our job at this point. It's our job to make sure that we succeed in moving the needle. Um, we got Deb from Sacramento who says Team Elon. Yeah, you got to go back and watch that show because I pointed it, and it's funny because when I did the show, I was showing, okay, this is why Elon is saying he does these things, and on the face of those things, those are all noble causes if they're to benefit humanity. But then I also said it's like you could be looking at him like a modern day super villain, that thought one way at one point, but then shifted his thought process, and now has a different mindset, but still controls all of these necessary components to move humanity along, right? And that's where the trouble comes in. And it's kind of it was funny because I was watching a news broadcast like within the last couple of days, and someone said the exact same thing about being a supervillain. And it just, it's a scary situation, is what I'll say. We'll write a ZG. Elon needs to buy a Karen tube and stop the censorship. Yeah, okay, I can see that. Like I said, depends on what his motives are. And I didn't get to say this, but thank you for the awesome super chat, Monica. I do appreciate your support of the show, especially when I'm over here going in like I'm going in right now. I do appreciate you because this is more an emotion based show than anything. Deb from Sac Rob G. And I appreciate you, Deb, as well. Thank you for your support of the show. We do appreciate you. I know what you mean, Jelly Bean. And let's see. Deb from Sac. Monica, why don't I see you in SOR anymore? I would love to know too, Monica. We'd love to have you at both places. Just so you know, we do miss you over there. And let me see. Yeah, I can talk to you about this, Derek Galloway. You want some truth? A lot of racism in ufology. Tell me, tell me, as a black host in this space. I'm aware of that, and what happened with ufology for me is I just got to a point to where I realized ufology is simply, it's no special place. It's a reflection of society as it is in all aspects, right? You have your different sides, you have your different beliefs, you have your different, and it's all in there. It's not a special place where racism or these things don't exist, right? But no, I'm glad you pointed out because a lot of people don't want to talk about that, but that is true. It is definitely true. So appreciate you on that. Let's see. Personally sick of the race card being played by adults throwing tantrums. Seriously. Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you what. Like I said, the person, I was shocked by a statement this person made. I mean, this person literally made statements that were directed towards specific race people. And this is the person that I thought was just a cool person, right? But it's like, okay, what is your ulterior motive then? What is your real purpose or your goal? Like, can a person who thinks like that also want to see the best for all human beings? Or does that contradict? And I think it conflicts for sure. So, you know, like I said, it's about trying to weed this stuff out and see what we can do to make the change and bring disclosure now. Um, let's see. Just looking here. Mateo, C-Tech, you'll always be a trusting soul, Rob. Don't worry about that. Don't ever change. You're wise enough to avoid getting hurt by that now at this point in your life. Yeah, yeah. True statement, Mateo. But you know those things that really grind your gears. It really just grinded my gears just because people when you have a love for just people, like literally a genuine love for human beings, there's not a racist bone in my body, right? So I accept everyone as they come, right? But sometimes people come with disguises, right? And it's just when you find out that this person has been wearing a disguise this whole time, it just ends up being a situation. If I wasn't doing what I'm doing here, I wouldn't care about it. I wouldn't have let it affect me. But I just put so much energy into humans loving human beings, right? That when I see something like that within my circle, that it just kind of doesn't sit right with me there. And let me see. Okay. All right. Looks like we're current. All right. So yeah, just knowing the risks involved, ontological shock, right? They talk about it all the time. What is going to be the result for most people who just all of a sudden find out, that aliens are here, and some people feel like it's going to be really tough. That some people aren't going to take it well. I can agree with that. There's going to be a subset of people who are just caught totally off guard, who don't know what to do, and it's going to be up to us to help those people in that moment, right? Um, the whole thing is that there is no benefit. Excuse me. There is no benefit to having disclosure happen way down the line versus having it now, right? What would you want? Would you rather disclosure take another 80 years, or would you rather it happen tomorrow? I guess that'd be a good question to
Ask the chat.
ask the chat. Well, ask the chat. Would you prefer disclosure tomorrow if it could happen, or would you prefer disclosure another 80 years down the road? I would like to know if you want to know. Yeah, it's a party. We got my guy Mateo back in the building here. I'm glad to see him here. Maggie M10, Magneticus, they all love and miss Mateo just like we do here. And if you ever look into some of the older archives, like in season 1, you'll see who Mateo is. C Tech. We did a lot of shows together, had a lot of great conversations, and he knows that the door is always open for him to come in and jump right back in the saddle, man. So um, Mateo knows that very, very well. Yeah. So with that being said, Magneticus wants disclosure on where the money went. Americans fighting over unrepresented taxes. Yeah, I mean that all comes out in the wash, Magneticus, and that's the thing with that. It you know we're gonna find all that out once the secrets come out, because then we'll know. Okay, you must have been spending the money on that. Okay, well that makes sense. Like I said, at the end of the day, what world would you want to hand over to your great grandchildren, just say descendants 100 years down the line? Because I do feel like in the moment of disclosure we're going to have a rough patch that we'll have to go through as human beings, and then where do we go from there, sort of situation. But I'd rather get that rough patch behind us and be on this new path that we're on that's really going to take us where we want to go. I'd rather have that happen now, get it out of the way, and then kind of move forward, which is scary because, like I said, a friend of mine's told me they had a vision of Donald Trump winning the election against all odds, and then a second vision of that being the last election. So what does that mean? Right? Does that mean disclosure happens within the next 4 years and we get to take those steps that we're wanting to take? That's kind of how I'm looking at that, because the person that said this to me has been right about a lot of other things to a point to where it's kind of scary, right? So, when I listen to the second part of that, being that maybe that would be the last election, that could mean so many things. It can mean so many things, and that's kind of another thing that I, have been sitting on and thinking about as well when it comes to disclosure. Like, does that vision mean? And I'm just going off of, not saying that visions always come true, but what I will say is this person's been right about a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? And for whatever that's worth, it makes me interested in the fact that this person said that they saw this being the last election, right? I need more info, and I'm hoping it's because we've gotten to a point of disclosure and we're able to bring this thing out the bag and change this program, right? And I think that's kind of what we're at. I think that's where we're at. I really do. There are, you know, there are definitely a lot of us that want disclosure, and I think I would hope most of us want disclosure, right? So we've been at least been able to sit down and talk about why the world needs disclosure now, and why I felt it was important to even talk about this, because like I said, I I don't feel that way so much as now. Now I've had time to think and kind of, now get this show out the way. But, there was a moment there where I was feeling like, wow, what is humanity doing? Like why are we as humanity you know, allowing things to happen to us, or allowing us to be moved backwards when we're trying to make forward progress? So I just had a moment of that, and which prompted this show. But I'm glad we did it, because on this channel we always have tough conversations, and conversations that some people just don't want to have, right? So someone may tune in and hear all this and be like, "Oh, wow." But these are the conversations that we have to have, because this world that we live in is it's wild at best. And, if the goal is to get every last human being on the same page, with so much division and things that we're looking at, it seems like a daunting task, or something that is going to be really hard to do. But I've said this before. I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep. That's my mission. That's my mode, and I think it can happen. And I'm going to see it through until it does, or until it proves me wrong. Until it shows me that this can't be a thing that is achievable or attainable. Right? I'll always be optimistic and bet that humanity can get its act together if we all get on the right mindset, right? And so that's kind of where I'll leave that conversation. So with that being said, let's push for disclosure. Let's just make sure that everything that we do, just make sure that we are putting good energy out there to receive good energy, that we are, gathering data when we can gather it on our own, taking those phones out, taking pictures and images of whatever anomalous things that we're seeing, and kind of make sure that we're able to help get uh, us to where we need to go. We've done a lot. We've cataloged a lot, as far as just, experiencers. So let's continue to do so, and maybe we'll get that big moment where we have that mass sighting, right? Like, which has got to be due to happen at some point here. We've had them in the past, so there wouldn't be any reason why those things wouldn't happen current day. So let's just stay optimistic. Let's stay gathering data. Let's stay spreading the word. Let's stay having these conversations like we're doing, and keep moving the needle, as what the motto is here, and that's what we're going to do. So, with that being said, I do appreciate everybody. Let me go ahead and get into some of our other segments here. So, we have a segment called Once Upon a Time in Ufology. We're going to go ahead and get ready to jump into that. Once Upon a Time in Ufology. What we're going to dive into is the Rendlesham Forest UFO, right? Very compelling encounter. One of the ones that's on the book, one of the great experiences. And let me go ahead and read it out for you here. So, Rendlesham Forest UFO. The encounter, often referred to as the British Roswell, remains one of the most compelling and well-documented UFO incidents in history. Taking place over several nights in December 1980 near RAF Woodbridge in Suffolk, England, the event involved multiple U.S. Air Force personnel stationed at that base. The incident began on the night of December 26th, when personnel reported seeing strange lights descending into the nearby Rendlesham Forest. Upon investigation, servicemen Jim Peniston and John Burroughs described encountering a metallic triangular craft emitting a glowing light. Peniston even claimed to have touched the object, observing strange symbols etched into its surface. The craft reportedly emitted heat and appeared to levitate silently before eventually flying away at incredible speed. The following night, more lights were observed, prompting further investigation. Deputy Base Commander Lieutenant Colonel Charles Holt led a group into the forest where they witnessed unexplained phenomena, including beams of light emanating from an unknown source and objects maneuvering at high speeds in the sky. Holt recorded his observations on a cassette recorder, creating a first-hand account of the event. Radiation readings taken at the site also appeared to exceed normal levels, adding to the mystery. The Rendlesham Forest incident was not officially investigated by the U.S. or British governments, with authorities attributing the sighting to mundane explanations such as a nearby lighthouse or celestial phenomena. However, these explanations failed to satisfy witnesses, many of whom have maintained their accounts of an extraordinary event. In the years since, the incident has become a focal point for UFO researchers, with new evidence and testimony periodically surfacing. Some argue that it represents contact with an extraterrestrial intelligence, while some skeptics suggest it was a case of misidentification compounded by stress and environmental factors. And that is Once Upon a Time in Ufology. We're going to go ahead and get into our science fiction, science fact movie of the week. And this one has been one we've done before, but it's one I just watched for the probably fifth time this past weekend, and that movie is none other than the movie Interstellar. Interstellar. Okay. So there was so much that I obviously missed on this movie when I went back and watched it. And under the new lens, like what we do here on this show, we do this science fiction, science fact movie to have you look at things through the lens that we're looking through now, that where we know these things are real. We know that some of these things that they show are achievable. And this movie is the scenario, right, is just bananas. So let me go ahead and let you know synopsis here of what happened here. Interstellar is a science fiction epic directed by Christopher Nolan that explores humanity's struggle for survival in the face of environmental collapse on Earth. The story follows a former pilot turned farmer, Cooper, who is recruited by a secretive NASA team to embark on a daring mission through a wormhole in search of a habitable planet for humanity, balancing scientific discovery, human perseverance, and the bonds of love. Interstellar takes viewers on a visually stunning and emotionally charged journey through space and time, exploring the limits of human potential in the mysteries of the cosmos. Once again, that is our science fiction to science fact movie of the week. Make sure you go and watch these. These aren't just for show. These are for you to actually say, okay, I'm going to watch that movie again because I want to see how it feels in current day, knowing that all this stuff is real, how it makes me feel. That's the point of this segment. And so I definitely hope everybody gets into doing that, because it is for sure a great movie, and just the whole aspect of what they were going through, why they had to do it, and then what they encountered while they went out to achieve these tasks. If you think about that being something that we would have to do current day, which could be possible, we don't know, right? We don't know. Elon Musk is his intent, so he says, is to get humanity off planet onto another world. This is essentially kind of what this is about, except for in this case, they were being forced off the planet because the planet is dying, right? Which we could be witnessing Earth doing that right now, and it's just at the early stages, and we don't know. And there may be people who know more than we do on that. But with that being said, that is science fiction to science facts. Movie edition, the movie of the week. Definitely hope you guys go and enjoy that. Make it a weekend movie, and we'll go ahead and get out of that and get ready to take it on home. All right. So, awesome show today. Definitely want to thank everybody for coming on in, and also the memberships, as we see right up here. Memberships are still available. Become a social soldier today. We have so many of you that are members, and I just really do appreciate it, because you guys are the ones helping move the needle, and it helps to have like-minded people having the conversations that hopefully get us the answers that we want, right? I'll always ask the questions, right? That's why I love doing what I do. So with that being said, let's give a shout out to the members we have so far, which is Maggie M10, the Beekeeper, Dean Unley, T-Bone, and Joanne, some Mothman, Richard Wilson, Lovey Love, Dogface, Woo Riders, DG, Poncho Zork, Deb from Sacramento, Flat 6, Lulu Bell, President Zaddy, Eternity Eternal, Thirsty, Bryce's Folly, Magneticus, Tractus, Urso, Saprosoft, Kurt M, Hips and Ships. Welcome to the show, Little Karen 51, Lisa Davis, Kitty Catty Whack, Joe Monk, Phil R, Chris Jarvis, Robert Redman, Clip Channel, Midwest Night Watchers, Guardian Jackpot, Brown Dorf, Drew Banky, Miss Catherine Jones, Deadfish Cheese Spread, Moody Mongol, and W. Decker, West Decker. We do appreciate your support. Remember, you can call us at any time here at the Social Dig. That number is 856-843-3444, or that is 856-THE-DIG. Remember, if you're calling from outside the United States, put a 001 in the front first, then dial the number, and you'll get right on through to our message line. You can just leave a message about your experience. You can talk about what you ate that day. You can just call in to say hi, because it's great to do that. It's definitely nice to hear that, and I would appreciate that. Save it in your phone, right? Also, book social show at gmail.com is where you can go ahead and sign up for the other show that we have, which is My Experience with the Phenomena, which you get to come on and talk about your experience. So consider doing that as we go ahead and get ready to wrap things up. We do have the message here, which is why I said before, this is why we do this and why we did this show today, is for the positive progression of humanity. When we talk about why we need disclosure now, it is for this reason right here, the positive progression of humanity. That is everyone, represents everyone across the globe. No room for racism, no room for any sort of hatred against another human. Let's make this happen. Let's make this a reality for our descendants down the line. Also, don't forget, we have the social shop. You can get swag at any time. Please consider doing that, helping the channel, helping us make this the best quality product that we can do. I would love to have that happen. Once again, I want to thank everybody for coming in. We had Polly Rodderman, we had Monica, we had my guy Mateo in the building, Hillbilly Her. We had Kurt M, we had Magneticus, Lex Diaz. We had so many people. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to say everyone, but I do want to thank you all for coming into the Social Dig tonight. You guys have a great rest of your night. I will see you at the after hours this weekend on Space Style Radio. You guys all take care. Till next time.